In this video, we will be discussing the product life cycle that every product goes through, from development to decline. This life cycle is usually broken up into 5 stages: development, introduction, growth, maturity and decline. Entrepreneurs and marketers across the globe use the product life cycle to make important decisions regarding each element of the marketing mix. The marketing mix, which we have discussed in other videos, consists of 4 Ps: product, place, price and promotion. You may be thinking surely the product life cycle only affects the product element of the mix, but that is not the case. Understanding which stage of life your product is in can impact your decisions around the price charged, the places it is sold, and how to promote it to the consumer. So what do we actually mean by product life cycle? To all the teachers out there, show all of these videos without any ads and gain access to our growing library of over 500 teaching worksheets. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Well, every product has its life. Just like you and me, it's born after careful research and development. It then grows and eventually matures before beginning to decline. Products, like humans, have a length of life. This is described as the life cycle in humans, and when applied to products, it's known as the product life cycle. Every product passes through certain stages, collectively known as product life cycle stages. As I have already mentioned, these stages include research and development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So why is the product life cycle so important? This concept of product life cycle highlights that sooner or later all products are going to die, and that if the business owners want to survive, they must replace the declining products with some new ones, or make other changes to remain competitive. The product lifecycle concept allows the entrepreneur to make forecasts as to what can be expected in the market for their product at each individual stage, and how the different elements of the marketing mix can be tweaked to be most successful. Some products may have a short product lifecycle, and some may have a much longer one. Before we look at each of these stages individually in more detail, let's first introduce this video's main example. This is Freddie Green, and he used to be the head of marketing for Insomniac Audio, a large electronics manufacturer which closed up shop back in the early 2000s, but had a great deal of success with their portable MP3 player, the GoPlay. Now that smartphones essentially double as portable music players, the iPod and other MP3 player devices, like the GoPlay, which was developed by Insomniac Audio, have more or less become a relic. But that shouldn't take away from the huge influential invention it has proven to be. It's not a stretch to call the first successful mass-market MP3 player one of the single most game-changing innovations of the last 2 decades. With gadgets smaller than your wallet, Insomniac and others like Apple altered the way we access and listen to music. We take for granted nowadays that music exists for the taking, across a host of different platforms like Spotify, iTunes and Amazon Music, but it took devices like the GoPlay and the iPod to pave the way for how we listen to music today. Unfortunately for Freddie and the rest of the large team at Insomniac Audio, the product life cycle of their GoPlay was a relatively short-lived one, and they were unable to adapt and innovate their product in line with their rivals like Apple. This inevitably meant that the product fell into decline, not that long after it had first entered the market. Bring this video and over 100 more to life with fun, interactive games, quizzes and case studies. Why not try the first 25 completely free by visiting BizzWizard.co.uk. So let's take a look at each of these stages of the product lifecycle and how they apply to Freddie and the team at Insomniac Audio. The development stage of the product lifecycle is the research phase before a product is introduced to the marketplace. This is when business owners bring in investors, develop prototypes, test products in focus groups, and plan out their product launch. This is not good for the business's cash flow. meaning that at this stage of the life cycle, they are spending a great deal of money with high costs, but they are not receiving any sales revenue, so they have a negative cash flow. This stage can last for a long time, depending on how complicated the product is, how new it is, and the competition that you are up against. Thinking back to our main example of Freddie over at Insomniac Audio, this phase was particularly hard. Insomniac were a little ahead of even Apple when it came to developing the MP3 player. As they were aiming to create a completely new product, this development stage was a long and difficult process. After the development stage, once a product like Insomniac's MP3 player is ready to be sold, it enters what is known as the introduction stage, which is when a product is first launched to the marketplace. In this stage, it becomes extremely important for marketers like Freddie to begin to build product awareness through reaching out to potential customers. This stage is full of advertising campaigns and methods of getting customers on board and helping them understand how the new product will benefit them. In this stage, a business like Insomniac is able to get a sense of how consumers respond to their product, if they like it, and how successful it could potentially become. They may be able to adapt the product to meet the needs of more customers, or improve its design in a number of ways. As an example, one of the main pieces of customer feedback that Insomniac received at this introduction phase was that the storage capacity on the device was too small, so they worked hard to improve this. Finally, in this introduction phase, a business like Insomniac is likely to have limited distribution channels, meaning the number of ways or places their product can be purchased by the customer. In the early days of their product, Insomniac's MP3 player was only available from one major electronics supplier in both the USA and Europe. Insomniac were clearly successful with their marketing mix, as the MP3 player entered the next stage of the product lifecycle, which is the growth stage, just a year after its launch. During the growth stage, consumers have accepted the product in the market and customers are beginning to really buy in. This was the case for Insomniac in 2002, when their sales began to really pick up and their advertising campaigns aiming to explain to customers how the MP3 player worked and why it was good had been really effective. In this stage, the market is usually beginning to expand, and this is when you will begin to see many competitors popping their heads up and fighting to take advantage of the new product's popularity. As many competing businesses begin to ramp up their marketing efforts, such as Apple and Microsoft, Freddie and the marketing team at Insomniac decided to shift their advertising away from selling the idea of using an MP3 player, but instead to building their brand and becoming one of the leading names in the industry. Insomniac also increased their distribution channels, making the MP3 player available in many new stores and online marketplaces. After the growth stage of the life cycle, a product will enter the maturity stage. The maturity stage is when the sales begin to level off from the rapid growth period. At this point, businesses will usually begin to reduce their prices so they can stay competitive amongst the growing competition in the market. For many businesses, this maturity stage of the product lifecycle will be the most profitable because they begin to achieve economies of scale, meaning that as they sell more of a particular product, they are able to reduce their costs due to having more buying power with suppliers and improved manufacturing. In many cases, during this maturity stage, the market may become saturated, meaning competitors have begun to take a portion of the market, and products will experience neither an increase or a decrease in sales. Usually, this is the point when most consumers are using a product, like in our example the MP3 player, but there are many competing companies all fighting for the market share. Here, Insomniac needed to focus their promotion element of the marketing mix on becoming the preferred brand to avoid their MP3 player heading into the decline stage of the product lifecycle. Each of the video courses over at BizzWizard.co.uk also includes an interactive business case study that applies the knowledge learnt to a real-world scenario. There are over 1,000 multiple-choice questions each with detailed feedback which tests students' understanding of the content. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Unfortunately, their product didn't become the preferred brand in the marketplace, with Apple releasing iTunes around this time and completely changing the way we purchase music. This led to a large decline in sales for Insomniac due to their inability to compete with a player like Apple, and with no online music marketplace of their own, the product entered the decline stage of its life cycle. Here, Freddie and his team had no choice but to focus their marketing at already loyal customers who were invested in the brand in an effort to survive. They decided to reduce prices in an effort to compete, but had little success. Eventually, Insomniac removed their product from the market, and it was then not available for purchase. The brand was then used to sell a number of accessories such as headphones and speakers for many years, before eventually the business was permanently closed and staff like Freddie had to head out and find new work. To avoid a product heading into the decline phase, many businesses like Insomniac may use extension strategies to increase the product lifespan, and we will discuss each of these in another video. As we have seen, carefully analysing the product lifecycle can help a business like Insomniac determine if their product is meeting the needs of their target market. By examining their product in relation to the whole market, their competitors, sales and costs, the business is able to decide how best to develop their marketing mix to increase the product's chance of a long and successful life. Until next time, this has been the BizzWizard. See you in the next video.